The Conception, the sacramental mysteries wrought by the Most High in the Queen of Heaven from the time of her Immaculate Conception until the incarnation of the Word in her virginal womb, and how much merit she herself acquired through divine grace by profiting from the favors conferred upon her during those first 15 years of her life. Introduction to the life of the Queen of Heaven, giving the reason for writing it and explaining other circumstances in connection therewith. 1. I should not be astonished to hear myself condemned as audacious, foolhardy, and presumptuous by any person who will begin to realize, if realized it can be, that I, a simple woman who is of herself but sheer weakness and ignorance, and who is, on account of her sins, most unworthy, has resolved and attempted to write of divine and supernatural things. This condemnation will be the more justified in these our present times, in which the Holy Church, our Mother, is so abundantly supplied with teachers and holy men, so rich in doctrines of the Holy Fathers and Doctors. In this our most opportune age, when even prudent and wise persons, full of holy zeal in the spiritual life, are disturbed and troubled at the least mention of a higher life, looking upon visions and revelations as most suspicious and dangerous paths for the pursuit of Christian perfection. If no excuse can be found for such an enterprise in itself, or even for attempting things that are so far above and superior to what man can hope to compass, and so far beyond all human capacities, that we can only conclude that to undertake them is either a sign of perverse judgment or the result of an activity far surpassing all the human power. 2. As faithful children of the Holy Church, we must confess that all the mortals, not only with the use of all their natural powers, but with the simultaneous use of all the common and ordinary graces, are but capable, and as it were, mute and ignorant weaklings for so difficult an undertaking as to explain and describe the hidden mysteries and magnificent sacraments which the powerful arm of the Most High has wrought in that creature, whom, as his mother, he has designed to be an immense ocean of grace and privilege, and the depository of the greatest treasures of the divinity. How incapable must our weakness acknowledge itself to be, when even the angelic spirits confess that words fail them when attempting to describe that which is so far above their thoughts and capacities. The life of this phoenix among the works of God is a book so sealed up that none is found among all the creatures of heaven and earth worthy to open it. Apocalypse 4:3. It is evident, then, that only the powerful Lord can unseal it, he who made her more perfect than all the creatures, or she herself, the mistress of our Queen and Mother, who was worthy to receive and properly to appreciate her ineffable gifts. It is in her power to select suitable instruments, and such as for her glory seem capable of manifesting these gifts in the proportion, at the time, and in the manner serviceable to her only begotten Son. 3. I would willingly maintain these instruments can be no other than the teachers and learned saints of the Catholic Church, or the doctors of the schools, who have all taught the way of truth and life. But the thoughts and judgments of the Most High are exalted as much above our own as heaven is exalted above the earth, and no one knows his mind, and no one can counsel him in his works. Romans 11:34. He it is that holds the scales of the sanctuary in his hands, Apocalypse 6:5, and who weighs the winds, Job 28:25, who grasped in his hands all the orbs, Isaiah 40:12, and who by the equity of his most holy counsels disposes of all things with weight and measure, Wisdom 11:21, assigning to each one opportune time and place. He dispenses the light of wisdom, Ecclesiastes 24:37, and by his most equitable bounty he distributes it, and no one can ascend to the heavens to draw it down, Baruch 3:29, or fetch it from the clouds, or know its ways, or investigate the hidden paths thereof, Baruch 3:31. He alone observes it as it is in itself, and transfuses it as the vapor and emanation of his immense charity, Wisdom 7:25, as the brightness of his eternal light, as the flawless reflection and image of his eternal bounty, through holy souls among the nations, in order to make them friends of the Most High, and constitute them as prophets, Wisdom 7:21. The Lord alone knows why and for what purpose he thus prepared me, the last of his creatures, why he thus called and raised me, obliged and compelled me to write the life of his most holy Mother, our Queen and Lady. 4. It is beyond the prudent surmise of any man that without this influence and power of the Most High, the thought of such a work should enter into a human heart, or such an enterprise should take shape in my mind. For I acknowledge and confess myself to be a weak woman, wanting in all virtue. Therefore it should be far from my thoughts to approach such a work, but equally as far from me to refuse it on my own account. In order that a just estimate may be had in this matter, I will mention in simple truth something of that which happened to me regarding this history. 5. In the 8th year after the foundation of this convent, in the 25th of my life, obedience imposed upon me the office which I unworthily hold at the present day, namely to be abbess of this convent. I found myself much troubled, sorrowful, and discouraged, because neither my age nor my inclinations were such as are requisite for governing and commanding, but they were rather such as befitted one who should be governed and to obey. I knew also that in order to invest me with this office, a dispensation had been obtained. On account of these and other just reasons, the terrors with which the Most High has crucified me during all my life were much augmented. In addition thereto, God left me in dreadful doubt whether I was on the secure path, or whether I should obtain or lose his friendship and grace. 6. In this tribulation I cried to the Lord with all my heart that he help me, and if it be his will that I should be freed from this danger and burden. Although it is true that the Lord had prepared me some time beforehand and commanded me to accept the office, and although when I tried to excuse myself on account of my pusillanimity, he always consoled me and reiterated his command, I nevertheless did not cease my petitions, but rather augmented them, for I perceived and understood in the Lord that, although he showed this to be his holy will, which I could not hinder, yet I was aware at the same time that he left me free to retire and resist, and if I wished, to act according to my weakness as a creature, and in the consciousness of my total insufficiency. Such is the prudence of the Lord in his dealings with men. Relying on this kindness of the Lord, I increase my efforts to be relieved from this evident danger, which is so little estimated by our own human nature, with its bad habits and disorderly passions. The Lord, however, repeated continually that it was his will, and he consoled me, admonishing me through his holy angels to obey. 7. I fled in this affliction to our Queen and Lady as to my only refuge in all troubles, and after I had manifested to her my way of life and my desires, she deigned to answer me with these sweetest of words. My daughter, console thyself, and do not be disturbed in thy heart on account of this labor. Prepare thyself for it, and I will be thy mother and superior, whom thou shalt obey. And the same I will be to thy subjects. I will supplement thy deficiencies, and thou shalt be my agent, through whom the will of my Son and my God shall be fulfilled. In all thy temptations and troubles thou shalt take refuge with me, confer about them with me, and take the advice which I will give thee in all things. Obey me, and I will favor thee, and will continue to be attentive to thy affliction. These words of the Queen, as consoling as they were soothing to my soul, From that day on, the Mother of Mercy multiplied her mercies toward me, her slave, for she became more intimate with me and continued her intercourse with my soul, receiving me, listening to me, teaching me with ineffable condescension, giving me counsel and encouragement in my affliction, filling my soul with the light and knowledge of eternal life, and commanding me to renew the vows of my profession in her presence. Finally, this, our most amiable Mother and Lady, revealed herself still more fully to her slave, withdrawing the veil from the hidden sacraments and magnificent mysteries which are contained, though unknown to mortals, in her most holy life. And although this blessed and supernatural light was uninterrupted and especially clear on her festival days and on other occasions when I was instructed in many mysteries, yet it was not so full, frequent, and clear as that which was afterwards vouchsafed to me, when she added the command that I write the history of her life according as her Majesty herself should dictate and inspire me. Particularly on one of these festivals of the Most Holy Mary, the Most High informed me that he had in reserve many hidden sacraments and blessings which he had conferred upon this heavenly Mother in the days of her pilgrimage, and that it was his intention to manifest them to me in order that I might write them down according to her guidance. This will of the Most High though I resisted it, was continually present to my mind for the space of 10 years, until I attempted the first writing of this divine history. 8. Consulting about my doubts with the holy princes and angels whom the Most High had appointed to direct this work of writing the history of our Queen, and manifesting to them how great was my disturbance and affliction of heart, and how stuttering and mute was my tongue for such an arduous task, they replied over and over again that it was the will of the Most High that I write the life of his most pure mother and our mistress. On one day especially, when I made many objections and declared to them my difficulties and my incapability and great fears, they spoke to me these words: "With good reason thou fearest and art disturbed, O soul. Doubtest and hesitant in a matter where doubtest and hesitatest in a matter where we angels ourselves would do the same, as considering ourselves unable worthily to describe the high and magnificent doings of the Omnipotent in the Mother of Piety and our own Queen. But remember, dearest soul, that the firmament, the whole machinery of the world and all things created, will sooner fail than the words of the Most High. Many times he has promised to his creatures, and in the Holy Scriptures it is recorded that the obedient man shall speak of victories over his enemies, and shall not be reprehensible in obeying." Proverb 21:28. And when he created the first man and gave him the command not to eat of the tree of knowledge, he established the virtue of obedience, and swearing he swore in order to give greater assurance to man. For the Lord has repeatedly given such an oath. For instance, when he promised to Abraham and that the Messiah should descend from his race, he added thereto the assurance of an oath. Genesis 22:16. The same he did when he created the first man, assuring him that the obedient shall not err. He also repeated this oath when he ordained that his most holy Son should die, Luke 1:73, and he gave a like assurance to men that they who should obey this second Adam, imitating him in the obedience by which he restored what the first lost through his disobedience, shall live forever, and that the enemy shall have no part in them. Remember, Mary, that all obedience takes its rise from God as from its first and principal source, and we angels obey the power of his divine right hand and his most just will. We cannot contravene or ignore it, because we see the immutable being of God face to face, and we perceive that his will is holy, pure and true, most equitable and just. Now this certainty, which the angels possess through the beatific vision, you mortals also possess in its proper proportion, as wayfarers through the words of the Lord concerning your prelates and superiors. He who hears you hears me, and who obeys you obeys me. Luke 20:16. Now since obedience is rendered on account of God, who is the principal cause and who is the superior of all, it is befitting to his almighty providence that he take the consequence of obedience, whenever that which is commanded is not in itself sinful. Accordingly, the Lord assures us of these things by an oath, that he will sooner cease to exist, though this is impossible, than that he will fail in his word. In the same way as the children proceed from their parents, and all the living from Adam multiplied from his natural being in his posterity, so also all superiors are constituted by God as the supreme Lord, on whose account we yield obedience to them. Human beings to their living superiors, we angels to our higher hierarchies of the same nature, and all beings together in their superiors obey the eternal God. Remember now that all of these have directed and commanded thee to do that,